So you want to get into rugby. You want to see them go smash. You want to see them play basketball, soccer, American football. You want to feel the heat of battle and form lifelong friendships. But you can't make sense of all the chaos unfolding in front of you. I mean, who would? You've got 30 players piling in, passing, pushing, running, jumping, tackling, lifting, kicking, stepping, dancing, all in order to ground a ball over a line to score some points. Rugby requires an understanding which most of us ruggers take for granted. Most of us grew up around rugby, so therefore we're not very good at making it easy for people who haven't grown up around it to understand and to easily pick up what's going on. Now, this does not mean you need to be born into rugby to understand and appreciate rugby. All you need is someone to explain the basic building blocks and the things that make this game great. Because let's face it, for anyone viewing the game for the first time, they are often left with more questions than answers. And so this is where I come in. In this series of videos, I'll be covering all the questions you may be too afraid to ask. And hopefully in the process, I can make you fall in love with the game the way I have. Oh, and did I mention, it's from my couch. Now, as you may have realized, rugby has a lot going on. To the novice eye, it appears to be utter chaos. For those of us lucky enough to have been taught how to understand and appreciate the great game, it's a game of chess played at high velocity and heavy impact. It is also one of the most, if not the most demanding sports in the world. Now, I don't just mean that from a pure energy exertion point of view, but also from a variety of skills required to propel your team forward. Now, if a rugby game was a chess match, the players would be the chess pieces and the coach would be your chess master. And just like in chess, each piece has a purpose, a skill set, and a unique role to play in order for our chess master to achieve victory. Now, before I explain the positions to you, I just want to give you some advice. Don't try and memorize each position as I go through them. Rather, just sit back, relax, and try and take in the information at your own pace. And then that way, remembering the positions would just take care of itself. So, a rugby team consists of 15 players on the field and 8 substitutions. The bulk of this video will be covering the 15 players that occupy the field. You'll also notice that the team is numbered from 1 to 15. Each number corresponds to a position that the player would play. Now, a player can play different positions as the game progresses, but it's generally considered proper etiquette to start in the position for which you are numbered. A rugby team is divided into 2 groups. Your forwards, numbered 1 to 8, and your backs, numbered 9 to 15. Your forwards are your bigger, stronger, more powerful players, and your backs are your quicker, faster, more agile players. Now, 99% of players will belong to one of these groups and to one of these groups exclusively. There have been situations and cases where some players will make a switch from a back to a forward or a forward to a back, but they really are the exception to the rule. Now, the effectiveness of your forwards are measured by how much ball possession they provide your team. The 4 main areas where they compete for ball possession are the scrums, the lineouts, the rucks, and the mauls. It's not limited to these 4 areas, but these are the 4 main areas of the game. You're also not expected to understand how each one of these areas of the game work today. But what I do need you to understand is that the positions of your forwards are determined by where they pack down in the scrum. So first up, we have our 2 props, number 1 and number 3. Number 1 is your loose head prop and number 3 is your tight head prop. They are called loose head and tight head because of where they pack down in the scrum. They pack down in the front of the scrum and they form part of a trio. So you've got your loose head, your hooker, who we'll get to in the next video section, and your tight head. Now, when they go pack down with their opponents, your loose head goes on the outside and your tight head is on the inside, this guy here. And another way to think about it is loose head, tight head. Loose head, tight head. So a prop's main job is to provide dominance in the scrum. The scrum is a very important facet of rugby, as the team that wins this battle is most likely to win the game. Props are required to be incredibly strong and they have to withstand enormous amounts of force, so you'll find that they are usually the players who are heavier set than everyone else. On top of their scrumming duties, props are required to do most of the lifting and lineouts and add their size and strength to rucks and mauls throughout the game. Due to their size, they tend to not be the most mobile of players, which means they can be a bit quiet during general play. But a good prop will always make sure that they are seen as more than just a scrummer, like this guy. Now next up we have our number 2, also known as the hooker. Not so much named after this kind, but more after this kind. The hooker scrums in the front of the scrum with a prop supporting him under each armpit. In the scrum, hookers are tasked with hooking the ball back to their team. They are expected to throw the ball into lineouts, and they are expected to control the ball at the back of rolling mauls. Hookers need to be powerfully built, as just like props, they scrum in the front row. Now onto my position, the locks, your number 4 and your number 5. Your locks scrum in the second row, behind the front row, each with a head between a prop and the hooker respectively. Your locks are also your main jumpers in the lineout, which makes this role perfect for a tall player, especially as speed is seen as a bonus and not a requirement. Now also, because they are your main jumpers, your most senior lock is most likely going to be the player that runs your line out. So that makes that player very important in the overall tactics of your team. Along with your props and hookers, your locks form part of a subgroup called the tight 5, or your tight forwards. Your tight forwards provide most of the pushing powers in the scrum, and they spend more time clearing out and securing rucks than any of the other 10 positions on the field. Due to them usually being the biggest and the least mobile, they would set up in the close quarter channels on defense. And on attack, they are often used to carry the ball up when defense is set, and there is not a lot of room for the smaller, faster, more agile players to exploit. If you spend any length of time around a rugby club or rugby team, you would often hear the friendly banter over whose position is most important. The rivalry between backs and forwards is real, but deep down both units respect the importance the other unit plays in achieving victory. With that said though, it's virtually impossible to achieve long-term success without a solid tight 5. They may not be the players that provide the high-octane, highly entertaining, highly skillful plays that people pay good money to see. But a good coach really values a solid tight 5. Because if your tight 5 is dominant over your opponent's tight 5, you're playing rugby on the front foot, and that is a big step to achieving victory. Now if you've done some quick math, you would have realised that we still have 3 forwards left to cover. If 1 to 5 are your tight forwards, then 6, 7 and 8 are your loose forwards. Your loose forwards don't play such a big role in the technical aspects of lineouts and scrums. They link between your forwards and your backs, so they need to be more mobile than your tight forwards, because they need to cover a lot of ground and keep up with fast backline play in order to support the backline during open play. So in a nutshell, your loose forwards are your ultimate support players. Their job is to get involved in everything and anything as much as they possibly can, to add their power and add their strength and help out the backline where they need to. So now that you have a better idea of what the loose forwards are about, let's dig into each position individually. First, we have the number 6, your blindside flanker. Your blindside flanker is your ultimate jack of all trades, Swiss Army knife, good at everything, master of nothing position. If chess had a joker piece, then the blindside flanker would be that piece. There's no set defined role for a number 6, so coaches would often pick players with attributes that they feel would add the best value in the areas of the game that they need reinforced. This is an area where you can often get a good feeling of how the coach views the game and what their intentions are by the type of number 6 that they pick. They could pick a number 6 who has more lock type attributes and who would contribute more to the line out. They could pick a player with higher skill level and more attacking capability to add more value to attacking play. Or they could pick an outright workhorse, someone who just gets involved in everything and makes an enormous amount of tackles throughout the game. Your 6 packs down on the side of the scrum, on the side closest to the touchline. This is called the blind side, therefore blindside flanker. This is also the side that the team with the ball is least likely to take the ball. So this brings us to the other side of the scrum, the open side. This is where your number 7, your open side flanker, packs down. It's the side furthest away from the touchline, and it is the side where the team with the ball is most likely to take it after the scrum. Your number 7 packs down on this side because they are tasked with breaking away from the scrum as quickly as possible and to put pressure on the opposition team's ball possession. They lead the way in trying to turn over the ball when the other team has the ball during open play. Your tight forwards battle for the ball during set phases of the game, but during open play, it's your number 7 who leads the way in that regard. Often you would find that your number 7 is shorter in stature than the other 2 loose forwards. This is because most turnovers happen low to the ground after a player has been tackled. One of the things that sets rugby apart from its 2 cousin sports, rugby league and American football, is the fact that a team can theoretically hold on to the ball for the entire game if they were dominant enough to do so. That's why it's important for teams to have players who are good at turning the ball over in open play. Now your 7 is expected to lead the way in that regard, but in no way are they expected to be the only player that does it. All players are expected to take the opportunity if it presents itself. And that brings us to the last of our loose forwards, our number 8. For some reason, they weren't very inventive when it came to the naming of this position. It's just called the number 8. Your number 8 packs down right at the back of the scrum with their head between the 2 locks. You'll find most often that your number 8 is the most physically imposing of the 3 loose forwards. This is because they are often seen as a battering ram and they are used to carry the ball up in different game scenarios into heavy traffic. They need to be strong in their feet and hard to bring down because they need to draw in defenders, which will enable the smaller, more agile players to take advantage of the space that they create. And that's all the forwards covered. What we are trying to cover in this video are all the fundamental basics of each position. Not that these are the hard and fast rules for each position, because things like overall team makeup and overall team strategy can drive different roles in each position. But some fundamental basics will never change. And these are the things we are trying to focus on, because if you can understand these concepts, you will start to enjoy the game on a more fulfilling level. Now onto our backs. You might recall from earlier in the video that I mentioned that your backs are made up of your faster, more agile players. Their roles tend to revolve around skill, pace and agility. The positions are divided into 2 groups. You've got your ball distributors and your ball runners. Your ball distributors are trying to get the ball into the hands of your ball runners at the right time and the right parts of the field to launch an effective attack. Now don't get me wrong, all backline players are required to run and distribute the ball. It's just that some positions require players to focus more on one aspect of backline play over the other. Your number 9 and your number 10 are required to be more focused on distribution, whilst your numbers 11 and 14 are required to be more focused on ball running. And then your 12, 13 and 15 will play a more balanced role in the game. So first up we have our number 9, also known as your scrum half or your halfback in other parts of the world. This is a very distribution heavy role, and no other player will touch the ball more than your number 9 does. The main role of your scrum half is to feed the ball to the backline once the forwards have secured it. And in many ways, they are the pulse of the team, as they both set the tempo of play and are heavily involved in the overall execution of strategy. The number 9 spends a lot of time collecting the ball off the ground in order to distribute it to players, so you'll often find that they are short in stature. They also need to give direction to play to the forwards, so it's a bit of a cliche for 9s to be smaller players with big personalities. So after 9 comes 10. Your 10 is also known as your fly-half or your out-half. If the 9 is the pulse of the team, then your 10 is the pilot, and this is because they control the direction of play. They control the direction of play because they line up in the first receiver position. This means they are the first player to receive the ball from the number 9. Due to this, they have to decide whether the ball gets kicked, whether it gets passed, whether it gets ran, or whether it gets popped to a bigger player to run into traffic. They aren't often picked as the captain of the team. Usually this tends to fall more towards your forwards, but they are always part of the leadership group of your team. Your 10 is not so much picked on their physical attributes, but rather on their tactical mind and their overall skill set. They need to be able to read the game and accurately pass and accurately kick. The best way to describe the position is to liken it to a quarterback in American football. Your number 9 acts as the 2IC to your 10 and helps execute the overall game plan. It helps if your number 10 is a running threat in their own right, but it is not a must. Their main job is to unlock the dangerous runners they have in the team and to set them up for success. So next we have our number 12, also known as the inside centre. Yes, I know I skipped 11. That will make more sense later in the video. All I will say now is that your 11 and your 14 go together, so I will cover 11 when I get to number 14. Your inside centre has always been an interesting position. It's one of those positions where it pays to have another ball distributor or another strong ball carrier. It would be great to have both in the one player, but in most situations, players tend to favour one or the other in terms of play style. They are often the biggest and most powerful of your backline players. This is because they are often used to run the ball up into a set defence when there are no forwards available to do so. Think of the back of a scrum or a line out. They also have to make an enormous amount of tackles during the game because their channel is the most ran out channel in the game. They line up right next to the number 10. So you can think of a number 12 as a player who could have the distribution skills of a second number 10 or the physical attributes of a quicker, faster number 8. And sometimes, yes, if you are lucky, you can have a player with both of those in one. Next, we have the most important defensive player on the team, your number 13, also known as your outside centre. Your outside centre lines up right next to your number 12, and they form the link between your distributors and your out-and-out flyers on the wings. They are charged with controlling your defensive line, and like a number 12, they have to maintain a balance between a running game and a distribution game. A good number 13 knows when to do what. A number 13 doesn't need to dictate the game, but rather they just need to adapt to it. Like a 10, a 13 isn't so much picked on their physical attributes, but rather on their ability to read the game. So this brings us to the fastest players on the team. Your number 11 and your number 14, also known as your left and right wing respectively. Their job is simple, yet not so simple, and that is to finish, to score tries and to look good doing it. If someone was to provide you with a Rugby 101 strategy, which most teams would build their strategy from, it would look something like this. And that is the forwards win the ball, the inside distributors distribute the ball, and they get it to the fast wingers into space to score tries. And last but not least, your number 15, also known as your fullback. Your fullback should have the skills of a number 10 because they're often in a position where they can set up counter attacks or they have to perform relieving kicks when their team is under pressure. They have to have nerves of steel because they are the last line of defense and they have to control the wingers and make sure that they are in the right place at the right time. because the wingers, along with the fullback, form part of your back three, and they occupy the backfield so they can field kicks from the opposing team. A good number 15 can slot into first receiver when the number 10 is not able to do so. They can help steer the ship and make sure the team maintains momentum until the number 10 can get back to their normal duties.